G'day Aussie Gridiron fans, welcome to the Week 16 G'day Gridiron preview show. What? How did we get here? Week 16 already. Alright, we got to get down to some games. G'day Brad, g'day Nick, how are we this evening?
Beautiful. Yeah, look, we got some great games coming at people this week, and excited to get stuck into it and see how things. Some playoff implications are on the line, so you know it's a good deal.
Yep, sure is. Nick, after a day of watching the English cricket team get absolutely demolished by the Aussies once again, are you excited to talk football now?
Yes, well, it lifts your spirits a bit from watching the cricket during the last sort of couple of days. So yeah, it's been a good start with them, and obviously great to talk some football. And like you said, there's been plenty of good games. But one thing, just for some of the listeners and the viewers of how we sort of go about, how we decide on which games we're sort of planning on talking about and everything. So just a bit of a sneak peek about how we do this.
We're going to peek behind the curtain.
So when we do our preview games, so usually Ian says, "All right, what games we're going to do? Let's pick a game we want to watch." So at least we sort of know who we're wanting to pick. So Ian came out and suggested some teams, some great matchups this week, which we'll talk about in a sec. One of our people that we like to do this podcast with, who's not here tonight, actually came out.
Throw him under the bus. Throw him under the bus, Nick. Do it. Because Brad doesn't know about this yet.
And Brad, you won't know about this. Out of all the good games that are on this week, this is the game, and I'm throwing him under the bus. This is the game originally that Isaac wanted.
He prefaced it with, yeah. What are you going to share? I don't know what you're
Chiefs
sharing.
versus
Will you
Titans?
guys hate me
What
I choose Chiefs versus Titans game? Nothing about records. I just want to see what the Chiefs look like. It's supposed to be without Mahomes. Well,
Now,
I can give you a fair idea. They'll have Gardner Minshew, and they're both tanking. So there's the preview, Isaac. Thank you very much.
I mean, I do need to. We probably should preface that entire thing with the fact that we do call this whole segment, the preview segment this year, games we want to watch. Now, genuinely, Isaac said, "I want to watch Chiefs Titans," and my reply was essentially, "No, that's not happening."
Thank you, Ian. Thank you. It'd be Isaac and 3 other people watching this game.
Because Chiefs Titans. I don't know. It wasn't going to happen. We have had to veto a few different games in the past.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, but there's a good reason for when it does.
We did have to pull rank. Anyway. Yes, no Chiefs Titans. That was a good preview there, Nick, actually. Now I can put that one up on the profile pic to say we preview Chiefs Titans.
We've done it. There you go. I hope Isaac's happy. Yep, Gardner Minshew versus Cam Ward, and both teams are out of the playoffs. Thank you very much. Let's move on.
Titans will screw up their draft pick and win that game for sure.
Guaranteed.
Because they're still playing with their starters.
Yeah, and they've looked better every week. They've gotten a little bit better.
Yeah.
So
I'd be interested to see how many of the Chiefs stars just are healthy scratches this week.
Yeah, do you really think Travis Kelce is going to be a productive? Is he going to go for that interior over the middle pass? Is he going to lay himself out for that? I don't think so.
Do you think Travis Kelce is going to retire this season?
I do.
I know we talked about it and we hypothesized about it pre-season because we thought they're going to go on this big run. They're going to do this again. They're going to try and get to the top of the mountain so Travis goes out on top.
But I think he's got so many career opportunities outside of football. I think that he's going to embrace that while he can, because those opportunities don't stay around forever. And part of the reason those opportunities are there is because they've been in the Super Bowl. you put him 2 years removed, 3 years removed from a Super Bowl, and all of a sudden his notoriety has started to wane slightly. I mean, he'll always be at the top because of who he's engaged to, but still, and I think the fact that Mahomes is not going to be 100% for week one if he comes back in week one at all, which would be unlikely. So
I said it a few weeks ago that I think that those opportunities outside of football were already impacting on his football. He wasn't playing as the same player, and I think just the workload of doing all these different things, especially the podcast, which he's opened up about the fact that they will record for a massive length of time on a day with his brother.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not just like the 2 or whatever hour pod it is that you see. Apparently, they cut that down, and I'm like,
so it's a 4-hour podcast. They just edit it to 2.
Yeah, because they have a whole production team that does all the editing and stuff for it. Because apparently, that's how you produce a podcast, not just in your garage in the middle of the Hunter Valley with a wide open door where it's 34 degrees outside. You got no air conditioning, no fan, and there's cockroaches flying around. So that's...
Mind you, they still don't beat the length of our neighbourly fantasy boys as well in terms of recording time.
No, the Aussie NFL fantasy boys
We trump them with that.
in Maddie and Taylor do definitely record for a very long period of time, and you boys don't even know the half of it because they used to record even longer.
Serious?
Yes.
Wow, that's props to them.
I have been on a 5-hour recording with those boys. That was brutal.
Oh, come on, man.
Coffee breaks in between.
This is why Manjot used to fall asleep as well.
Yeah, right.
In the middle of it. It's 1 a.m. just nodding off. Anyway, we should talk about those games we want to watch, other than the game that Isaac wanted to watch. There are some really good games on the schedule, some interesting games, some ones that have some proper divisional matchup implications in this week. So we are going to talk about a few of those. We've picked out a couple which we think are probably the best. To be in all honesty, I picked out 5, and we sort of nixed one, so we get to the 4. Plus, we'll have Monday night football preview, which will be fantastic to talk about, I am sure. It'll be absolutely hilarious once we get to the jokes that come along with that one. But we should start off with the Sunday American slate of games. Nick, I think yours was the earliest game. It is. Do you want to kick us off, Nick, with the game that you chose? You actually chose this game this week. So, to pull that curtain back, we did usually each pick a game each, but the further we go through the season, the more obvious it is which games we're all going to want to talk about. So it just makes it easier. But Nick put his hand up straight away for this one. So, Nick, what is the game that you wanted to watch this week?
Well, I did actually wait on this game as well. I wanted to see if Isaac was going to snap this one up because it actually involves, one of his teams that, he had a bold prediction on earlier in the year and could almost come true. Yes, the team I'm talking about is the Panthers, who this week are hosting the Bucks. So, 2 teams coming into this, going for the division lead with 3 weeks to go. And neither have a winning record. So what an incredible division we're really delving into here, the NFC South. However, the Bucks would be thoroughly disappointed that the division is coming down to the last 3 weeks when really 2 months ago they were the 1 seed in the entire conference. And I think, not the league, but just the conference. And obviously since then they've lost 6 of their last 8. So they've been thoroughly disappointed. And really, we talk about, Baker Mayfield at the time was potentially an MVP candidate. He has fallen off a cliff. I understand they've had some injuries, but, he's just a completely different player the last couple of months. Carolina, on the other hand, are the new kids on the block, a bit like how I spoke about the Patriots last week. Similar sort of thing. So they're trying to steal this division after you can see some improvement, particularly since November last year. On the offensive side of the ball, they had that stretch towards the end of the year, which sort of Isaac was hinting about in the predictions when we're doing our South preview week, of just that improvement that they had offensively, and you can really see that they've really grown, particularly Bryce Young as well. But it has been sort of inconsistent for them across the board. Like defensively,
Hmm.
they sort of picked themselves up. Um, Offensively, they've still been had some good weeks, but they've also had some weird weeks. So they'd be kicking themselves as well if they don't grab this division, as they've had some polarizing results across the board. Like they beat the Rams, but they got swept by the Saints. Then they won in Lambeau, and then they lost to Arizona. So it's really been all over the shop. So it's opportunities that they've missed as well as the Bucks. But two stats that are noteworthy is that the Bucks are a 500 team when the game is decided by 7 points or less. The Panthers are 6-2 when the game is decided by 7 points or less, which is weird for a team with less experience that are closing games better. And on top of that, you can tell the frustrations inside the Tampa Bay headquarters, considering Todd Bowles' frustrations last week at that press conference. Man, he was scathing. So, whilst the Bucks have been healthier offensively, their defense has really struggled throughout this year, and that's probably where Todd Bowles' frustration really comes down to, because they've led some games and they've given up some leads as well. Particularly last week against the Falcons, how they lost that game is still a mystery. But in this game, the Panthers, I think, if they split with the Bucks like over the next 3 weeks, I think they end up going through based on sort of obviously it depends on the
Yeah,
game
they do.
in between, of course. But I mean, either way, no way to rule slice it in terms of who it's more important for. To me, it's a win to really put the pressure on the other one. I think the Panthers next week play Seattle. I'm not sure who the Bucks have, but I think it's another pretty tight opponent. I can have a look at that. But just while I'm having a look, Brad, how do you view this game coming up? Who's got more to lose with this game?
The Bucks definitely. I think that you could make the argument that the Panthers are still building out and kind of a rising team. The best times are arguably ahead of them, whereas the Bucks, you could say they're aging a little bit. And Baker has played so well the last season and at the start of this season. You don't want to see kind of that old narrative come back of, oh, he can't do it.
Yeah.
So I think the Bucks have a lot to lose in this game. One of the matchups or the key things that I'm looking at is going to be Bryce Young versus that Bucks secondary, because Young's deep ball is good. He can throw he's accurate with the deep throws, and Tampa loves to do that zone coverage. So it'll be really interesting to see if they can do a lot of play action, which they need to. They need to be able to get that run game going so that they can then open up that deep ball. So that's the angle that I'm really looking at. And again, how willing is Canales going to be to stick with that run game against the Bucks? So is he going to just abandon it, and are we going to see Bryce Young throwing another 60 passes, or is he going to stick with it and kind of stay time of possession? I think it's going to be a close game, though. I really do. I think it's going to come down to a little bit of a one score. I can see why it's 3. I would probably put the spread even closer than that, to be honest with you. And it could be one of these, whoever has the ball last is going to win.
The tiebreaker situation is actually incredibly complex. So the simplest way is one of these two teams, because they play each other week 16 and week 18. So sweep the other, win both games, you're in. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
If they happen to split, then it will come down to the fact that they will have the same division record, they will have the same conference record at 3-3. It will come down to essentially their strength of schedule against common opponents. So,
Yeah.
and at the moment, the Bucks would have a very narrow victory. So the Panthers are 6-8 on that, and the Bucks are 7-7. So the Bucks would have a very narrow victory margin there, depending on how the Panthers play against the Seahawks in Week 17.
Yeah, if they win that, then they're in.
Yep. So if the Panthers beat the Seahawks in Week 17,
and split, then they would get in.
correct.
Okay.
Yep. So if the Panthers lose to the Bucks this weekend in Week 16, then they have to beat the Seahawks next weekend to have any chance at all, and then beat the Bucks in Week 18.
That would be such a Panthers thing to do, though, is to freaking lose to the New Orleans Saints and then go and beat the Seahawks. That's just so emblematic of this season.
So, by that same token, so now if the Panthers win this weekend against the Bucks, then the Bucks have to effectively be rooting for the Seahawks to actually beat the Panthers, so that they can go into Week 18 and say we need to beat. So,
I love it.
It's
I'll mail you some of my Seahawks gear.
So yes, it comes down to, and this is one of the first times in a very, very long time where we've had a division title come down to strength of schedules. Yeah, we've seen it a few more times in the lower levels, so 5, 6, and then more recently the 7th spot, where it comes down to the wire down that far in terms of conference. We've never seen down to strength of schedule against common opponents, not for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So, and so likewise, Brad, I am very interested to see Bryce Young against this Bucks defense. They can be absolutely brutal, this Bucks defense, when they want to be. When they turn on, they are like a big light switch, not just a light bulb. It is like a 40,000 lumen bulb in your face. And so these guys will just like blind you. So it'll be interesting to see how Bryce plays against that line. Will he be like last week, as we talked about Brad in the reaction show, where in the first half people were calling him Bryce Mahomes? Or is he going to be that Bryce Young that we saw in the second half of last week's game, where he couldn't get anything going and he couldn't figure out which way was up, and took all those sacks? That's where he had the bulk of his missed passes, etc. So, will that offense fire? Will they get Ted McMillan involved early? Jalen Croker? So these guys, if they got those guys involved early and often against the Bucks, then I think that they'll be able to stretch that out. Against the Bucks, I think the blueprint has been that you need to take the lead early, and then you need to hold on to that lead through the third quarter. Don't let them come back. If you build a lead and you let them get close in that third quarter, they are going to take it down to the wire. And more often than not this year, that's where the Bucks play their best football, is in the fourth quarter, right down the wire. So that's what I'm most interested in, apart from seeing if Baker has any help from anybody in his offense, and whether they can all play.
They've gotten healthier offensively a little bit more now, the Bucks, so they should be able to put up points, really. It's just more so defensively they've really struggled. And I wonder if it's a similar mentality that the Bucks have sort of taken on with the Chiefs, where they're sort of been... I mean, the Chiefs in previous years haven't been sleepwalking through their division, but the Bucks certainly have. So I wonder now that, a bit like the Chiefs had with the Broncos, where there's a bit of pressure, how are they going to be able to compete with it and handle it, in that sort of situation, which they didn't. I wonder if the Bucks can be in that same boat.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see another week back with Bucky Irving back on the field for another week. Mike Evans, see if he can get involved again. I think he's crucial to... the top quality wide receiver is what the Bucks have been lacking for a good portion of the season, and they need someone with experience and the balls to take over and say, give me the ball. Throw it to me. Yeah. Get the ball to me. Give it to me in the backfield. Like, let me punch through. Let me get down the field. So, yes, Igbuka's was great early season. He's really tapered off. And you saw some bit parts from some other guys on the Bucks offense. But
I think Ibuka's just hit that rookie wall that we see so often.
Yeah.
But you mentioned a little bit that another matchup that I think is going to be key is that Mike Evans versus J.C. Horn, because obviously Evans, we all know what he can do, and he showed it when he came back. 6 catches, 130 some odd yards. And then J.C. Horn, he's been playing really well. So it'll be interesting to see how that matchup goes about.
Betting wise, there was a couple of sort of smaller lines, individual player props that I sort of fancied in this. Just guys that are coming back that I think might be a little bit better, and just things that seem to regularly happen. Baker with 2+ passing touchdowns is sitting at $1.83 on Sportsbet. Bucky Irving, after a down week last week for the first time back in after a few weeks, is at $2.50 for an anytime touchdown, which is sensational for Bucky because previous to that, his previous 6 games he'd scored a touchdown in every game. And his rushing yards are set quite low. They're somewhere around the 40-yard under/over. So Bucky at 60+ yards right now is $1.65. So I'd like those sort of 3 just basic player prop bets. And yes, I picked all Buccaneers stuff, but there's a lot of the Carolina stuff has been so up and down, or they've been using a lot of different players and a lot of different guys that it's very hard to, in betting wise, to put your money somewhere and believe in it.
My bet for this one would be I have to break out the fun police again, and I'd take the under.
What's
they got
that set at?
45.5.
45.5. Yeah, right.
I just think it's gonna. I think they're gonna go with that run game. I think you're gonna see Bryce take deep shots, but I think they're gonna try and rely on that run game. I think it's just gonna slow the pace of the game down.
Bucks are favoured by 2.5 too. By the way,
2.5. Okay,
yeah.
It was 3. Okay.
So they're back to 2.5 now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
It's not a bad line, to be honest, for this game.
No, if you do they have those bets where like scores like a close score margin of victory? Like 0 to or 1 to 6 point.
Oh yeah.
Victory.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would definitely take that. I would definitely do that bet.
Which way? Or just like either team?
Either team. I think just the margin of victory. Yeah, I would even say the margin of victory is going to be 3 points.
So either team 3 or less is paying $3.60. Either team.
Yeah. There you go. 3 or less. I'd do that. I definitely would do that.
That's good money. That's really good money.
360.
Considering this is a game that could very, very well go right down to those final seconds in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter, even overtime. I could see this game going to OT because it is so important. This game is.
It's a playoff atmosphere. This is a playoff game.
Yep.
It is, certainly is. Righto. Anything else, Nicky? You got anything?
No, I was trying to have a look. Sportsbet didn't have anything. I was looking at seeing what McMillan's sort of receiving yards would be, considering on the back end of Tampa it hasn't been that good. But Sportsbet haven't updated that information as of yet, so nothing from me.
Like Sportsbet, if you just talk to us,
together.
Talk to us, and we can give you some ideas on things that you should be doing that can maximise this. Right?
I love it.
You're talking about taking people's money, and we can give you ideas on how to take people's money so that we can win it.
And get a cut, of course.
And of course, of course. That goes without saying. All right, let's move on to the second game for the weekend, and it is the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Denver Broncos. What a great AFC matchup this one's going to be. The Jags are currently sitting at 10-4 at the top of the AFC South. And the Denver Broncos, of course, have already clinched a playoff berth and are sitting at the very, very top of the AFC at 12-2, leading division by a game over the Patriots at the moment. The Jags are actually sitting in third in that division. So, incredibly important game for both teams. Denver are 7-0 at home this season. What a sensational record. Jags 4-2 away from their house. Jags are on a 5-game win streak though, up against that Denver Broncos 11-game winning streak. These guys have not lost a game since week 2.
Jeez.
Yeah, right.
Week 2. You realize that is so long, and in
Sure,
the
it was week 2, by the way.
NFL.
I better check myself.
Okay,
I checked myself. Week 3. Sorry. Week 3.
Week 3.
Like
Still,
that matters.
So long.
That's insane. That is absolutely. And if you would have said at the beginning of the year that the Broncos' last loss would be in week 3, that blows me away. It really does. Hats off. As much as Ian and I just aren't big Sean Payton fans because his ego is,
That is never a truer word has been spoken, Brad. It's an understatement of the year, that one.
I respect the guy for what he's done and his coaching ability, but his ego just drives me insane. Anyway, that is so impressive to be able to do that. So hats off to that team for being able to do that. I still, I don't know what it is because I should be a big Bo Nix honk. And he played great last game, but I just wonder how is he going to go against this Jags secondary because they lead the league in interceptions.
Yeah.
So is he going to be able? And they're not. They don't have as much to play for, really. I mean, in that sense, they've got their playoff spot locked up. And the Jags have just been playing really, really well, as you said. So I just wonder how is Bo Nix going to tackle this Jags secondary? Is he going to get rattled? Because I would take the bet I would on this would be an interception by Nix because I think they will get to him. The Broncos protect the ball really well, but he threw a couple balls last game that should have been picked off. So. It's going to be a good game. I think it could be a preview for the playoffs. But I kind of hope. I know we shouldn't say it, but I hope the Jaguars win.
The Denver Broncos are also leading the league in team sacks, Brad. And Trevor Lawrence, they got 58, by the way. Next closest is and I can't believe it, is the Atlanta Falcons on 48 team sacks.
Okay.
Yeah, and just the way Trevor Lawrence has been playing behind that O-line, he's going to have to get that ball out in an astonishing amount of time against these guys who are just But again, like you said, their defense is leading the league in takeaways.
Well, you make a good point there. You know, he's going to have to get that ball out quick, which is kind of it doesn't help them because Brian Thomas is a stud, but on the deep ball, and if he doesn't have, he leads the league in I think yards per reception, and if he doesn't have the time because he's getting pressured. To deliver that deep ball to Thomas, then it could spell for a long day, especially because Thomas is going up probably against Surtain. So, and we all know how good Surtain is. Although he's had a little bit of a step back this season, but overall he's still playing really, really well. So, that could lead definitely into Denver's favor.
Jags O-line has been solid this year, hasn't been too bad. But in saying that, you're coming up against a complete juggernaut, which I do agree. I do agree, Brad, like they're going to have to change. I mean, they wouldn't be changing too much. I mean, because look at Trevor's last 3 games. Like he's had 10 touchdowns, no picks, 123 passer rating, 9 yards a pass, and 300 yards a game. So, like, you wouldn't be changing too much of how they've been playing. And I get that they've been playing some weaker opponents, like they played Arizona. I think the Jets are in there somewhere, and I think another bad team, probably Tennessee or something. But yeah, he's been phenomenal. But the weird thing about the Jags is that they actually lead the entire league in most games in which a team scores 25 or more points. So that's more than the
Huh.
Bills, more than the
Okay.
Packers, more than the Rams, more than the Patriots. They lead the league. And that's more so been the last sort of few weeks, of course, where they've really built upon it. But they just find a way to keep scoring. And I said it not too long ago. I think Liam Cohen deserves a lot of praise. I think Trevor's
Mm.
improved a bit, but that run game has really gotten better. And you can tell, like, ETN's back to what he was a couple of
Mm.
years ago. A bit like, how the Bucks were able to transform themselves a couple of years ago with Bucky Irving and, had Rashad White. Better run game as opposed to
Mm.
the previous years where the Bucks were pretty terrible. Um, yeah, so Jacksonville offensively has been really good. As we know about, the Broncos, we've said it all year, their defense has been insane. They've held 10 of 14 opponents to a passer rating below 80. Last week, they gave Jordan Love his worst passer rating of the year of 68.
Mm.
And even offensively, like you look at how we talked about how well Bo Nix has played. As a team, though, 28 points per game in since their team bye. So he's been really good as well. So to your point before, as you were saying, Brad, about Jacksonville, they're second in the league with turnovers, which is true.
Mhm. Mhm.
One thing though about the Jags, though, if they're not creating turnovers, they give up a lot. They are,
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
20th in opponents' passing yards per game. They're one of the worst teams on third down defensively. They give up a lot of penalties defensively as well. They also don't get to the quarterback a lot. So if they're not creating turnovers, it can be a long day. And Bo Nix has only had, I think, about 9 picks this year. There's probably somewhere you probably think, oh, he definitely should have been picked off there, or should have had a few more to his name. But I think if you're Sean Payne, you probably play this one a little bit more conservative. If you're not giving the Jags the ball, you'll trust your defense to be able to say, okay, when the Jags get the ball, we'll be able to stop them. As long as Bo Nix doesn't turn over the ball, I think the Broncos will be pretty safe. They're at home. They've been incredible at home this year. And like I'm looking at the minus 3.5. I like Denver with that as well.
The Liam Cohen effect, I think, stretches all the way through to the defense. It's a whole team, by the way, and their defensive coordinator, Anthony Campale,
Pale.
Campale. That's how I get it. I was going to get there eventually, Brad. I think, yeah, he's got to be very much praised as well. 2024, the Jags on total defense were 31st out of 32 teams. This season so far, they are ranked as the 10th best team in the league on total defense. So that's everything. Yards allowed, interceptions, takeaways, all that kind of stuff. So all the takeaways, the giveaways, the whole lot. Fumbles, penalties, the lot. So they are ranked as the 10th best defense. So I think that when you're talking about the offensive side of the Jags and the way that Trevor has developed and the way their run game has developed, Nick, I think that Liam Cohen effect is basically an umbrella over the entire team. That whole team has lifted this season. So it will be fascinating to see how they come up against Mr. Ego and Bo Nix, and just see how they go coming up against this. I don't want to poo-poo the Broncos every single week, and I need to stop doing it because they are on an 11-game winning streak, and they are 12.
You got to give them credit.
I do have to. There has to be some credit here.
Guys,
where
you need
it's
to
due.
put your Sean Payton hate aside.
I do, and I'm trying, but it is a fact that the majority of their games come down to close one-score games. And quite often this season, those one-score game wins have had to involve them coming back massively in the fourth quarter to put themselves in that position to be able to win the game. So is that going to happen again? This is another one of those games where I think, just like the previous one we talked about with Bucks and Panthers, I think this could come down to the wire at the end of the day. I think this could be very close. And certainly the handicap is sitting at minus 3.5 towards the Broncos. So they are favoured in this at home by 3.5. And the under-over total is 46.5. which I think is about there or thereabouts, based on the scores that Denver have been putting up and they've been getting scored against every week. It seems like they do have this thing, and I really don't like to say it too much, but it's like they play up or down to their team, to their opposition.
The Jags?
The Broncos do.
Okay.
But I think the Jags have been doing something similar as well, which is it's going to be very weird for this game to have two teams that do exactly that. But the Jags at least beat up on bad teams this year. Their 25-3 smashing of the Titans a few weeks ago is probably the actual postcard for that. Whereas the Broncos haven't beaten up on those bad teams. I mean, they won 10-7 against the Raiders only a few weeks ago.
Yeah, say no more.
So
say no. I think that was probably the last time the Raiders scored. So yeah. One thing, we give the Jacksonville a lot of credit with their interceptions, but you also have to take into consideration who have they faced at quarterback in these last 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You had Cam Ward, Riley Leonard, and Brady Cook.
Correct,
Not exactly lighting the world on fire. So there is that.
100%, Brad. Yep. Could not agree more with that. There is that, and that is a very, very important point. So
yeah, I mean they beat Herbert a while back, but still,
quite convincingly.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, that's Broncos Jags. I think that's where it's going to be. I could not confidently pick player props out of this game myself. Travis Etienne would be about the only one because his anytime touchdown figures are sensational. The Jags rely on him massively, and he has been a massive light on that offense this season, as Nick pointed out. The rushing game has been sensational. I don't even know where else I would go with.
I would do a Brian Thomas, over 20-yard reception. How you can do that? I would do. I don't know what that's paying, but I think they're gonna force feed him.
Yep.
So that's the one I would go with.
I think closer to the game you will get longest reception lines usually.
There you go. His under-over for that is 20.5. There you go.
Oh, look at Brad.
Longest
Look at
reception.
Brad. See Sportsbet. We know what we're talking
There you
about.
go.
See?
Right
Bingo.
on the money.
Bingo.
Right on the buzzer. Cool. Well, that's that game. Number 3 for the games we want to watch this week. We're going to Detroit, who welcome in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Who doesn't want to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, Brad?
I don't. Yeah, you got the Steel City versus the Motor City. For those of you people that
That's a good way to frame the start of this,
Good way
Brad.
to
Well
frame
done.
it, yeah.
I like this.
Yeah, thanks.
So we've got the 8-6 Pittsburgh Steelers, who are just hanging on to the AFC North and need every number in the win column that they can find to make sure that they can hang on to the AFC North.
Yeah.
Up against the Detroit Lions, who are 8-6 in the NFC North and need every number in the win column that they can find to hang on to a wildcard spot in the NFC. Of course, obviously, conference games matter, and this is not a conference game, but when you need those win-losses in that column and you need get rights, this is where you need to start. The Lions are coming up against actual divisional games over the next couple of weeks after this Steelers matchup, and after a pretty sore loss to the Rams last week, they need to come out swinging against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's something we have seen them do after nearly every loss this season. The Lions at the moment are on a streak of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 win-loss, 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 win-loss.
Jeez. Okay. So basically, for the past
It's a
10
win.
weeks.
10 weeks they have been on that same trajectory. Every single time they have gotten a loss, they have come out the next week and they have beaten up on the team that they play in the second week. And of course, they had a pretty heavy loss, 41-34 against the Rams. So up against Old Man Rogers and the aging wide receivers. That's a pretty good band name, actually. Old Man Rogers and the aging wide receivers. That sums up the Steelers completely. I can just see this young, hungry defense coming out there, pissed off, nasty. Dan Campbell just calling some of the weirdest plays he can recall from Ben Johnson, and just doing some weird shit to this team on both sides of the ball. Brad, what do you reckon Steel versus Motor City?
It's a key matchup. Right now, the Lions are sitting like at 28% chance to make the playoffs. And if they win this, it jumps up to 35%. If they lose it, it drops down to 10%. So
they're gone.
They're virtually gone. So I think the streak is going to continue of alternating win-loss, and they're going to come out of this with a W, because I just think they know what's on the line. And I've been critical of Dan Campbell and his play calling, but I got to admit, I mean, they're leading the league in scoring. So you can't be too critical in that regard towards them. It's just, again, on defense, they've been hurt, and that defensive line is just they're gonna have to get some depth. They got to address that in free agency, in the draft, and because they need some help just overall in terms of their depth with that. Pittsburgh, they signed a running back this week, I think, to give themselves depth, so you're going to be able to see that. I think they know they need help there. But I'm just not convinced that they can match that Detroit offense, and I think the Detroit offense is going to just kind of be, like a cat playing with its food type thing a little bit. I think they're going to be hungry for a win, and they're gonna, I think, put the wood to them.
Definitely a game where both defenses are really going to struggle. So the over actually looks pretty good in this game. I like I'll preface it with the first leading into it. So my actual bet for this was total Lions points over 29.5. That Steelers defense,
great bet,
has not been the same this week. And we talk about revenge games for the Lions, which have had to have a few this year, literally with the win-loss. And I think it's just going to be one of those games. And are the Steelers going to be able to win in a boat race against Detroit? I don't think so. Despite that, though, there are some things that do point to Pittsburgh's sort of favor in terms of maybe they can compete in this game. And what I mean by that, so the Steelers this year, when they are not facing a top 10 passing defense, are actually 6-1. They put up 29 points a game. Okay. And Aaron Rodgers' passer rating goes to 111, which is actually pretty good. The only problem with that is that the weakness rather of the Lions' defense right now. Obviously, you talk about their defensive line, actually in their secondary, and I don't think the Steelers are going to be able to stretch defensively. Not going to be able to stretch Detroit defensively, considering their personnel. Like DK would be able to get downfield, but they're more so relying on those sort of bigger bodies. Like they've got Washington, they've got Johnny Smith, they've got Fryermuth. They've got Gainwell there, who's really a bit more of a receiving back, more than a running back nowadays. So they sort of rely on sort of those guys being able to get a hold of the ball and just being able to push their way forward. But it is maybe a way that they might be able to keep up. I mean, Rodgers, these last two games has been pretty solid. Like last week, his completion percentage was actually the second highest of his career in any game at 85. So, mind you, it was against Miami in the wet. So, I'm not taking much out of a Pittsburgh win against Miami, who can't play in anything under 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Um, but I think it's just unfortunately it's going to point to one of those games. Like Detroit is just going to be able to push them around, unless we see something weird out of Mike Tomlin's defense, where it's like they're all of a sudden going to be this really good defense, which we all sort of expect them to be.
Mm.
Well, coming into this season, I think it's going to be one of those games where Detroit sort of runs away with it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm seeing Detroit. So again, if I was going margin of victory, I'd go
Mm.
7+ on this one.
Mm.
And that's even with Detroit's defense struggling. Like the
Yeah.
last sort of couple of years, like in December and January, they give up more than 30 points a game. In December and January, the last 2 years,
Okay.
and 32, they're conceding 32 opponents' points per game in the last two seasons, which is actually the worst in the NFL, which is
Mm.
very strange.
One interesting stat nugget I had for this game was that the Lions are 8-0 when scoring first. So if you want to do some live game betting, if they score first,
I wonder if
put
that's
some money on that.
I wonder if that's a market.
Brad, either team to win by 7. Is it $10.50?
Oh, that probably is right on 7.
Right on 7. Minus 7.0. The handicap is 6.5 to the Lions, who are favoured here against the Steelers. Rightfully so. I wonder whether the Steelers will even be able to cover that. The under-over is at 51.5. Looking back at the Lions matchups where they have beaten up on teams, they do tend to let some teams come back with some garbage time late. So that is quite a low under-over, to be honest. I'm just looking at a few of these scores where they've gone the next week. Commanders, they won 44-22. The Giants, they beat 34-27. The Cowboys, 44-30, Brad. That game. That was after they had the Packers loss. They came back and smashed the Cowboys the following week. So that's their 70-point totals for most of those games. So that's 51.5. She's a big slap the over bet, that one is.
Yeah, I'll take that.
The other one that I was sort of looking at a little bit more was just Jahmyr Gibbs. His alternate lines for rushing and receiving yards, because why not take him? His under over is set at 116.5. So if you go over to about the 125 mark on his alternate line, you're getting just over $2. Which I think is pretty good value. $125 from scrimmage, 125 yards from scrimmage is pretty achievable by Jahmyr Gibbs. Such a player is amazing. He's a cheat code.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. He really, really is.
So,
All right, let's move to our final game for the Sunday American games, Monday in Australia, and it is Sunday Night Football. The New England Patriots at the Baltimore Ravens. Now, this matchup early in the season should have been completely the opposite way around to what we are looking at it right now. Everybody would have thought that by this stage, the Baltimore Ravens would be fighting for the number 1 seed in the AFC, but they are not. They are 7-7 at the moment. They are just on 500 and being second place in the AFC North to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The New England Patriots, on the other hand, are 11-3, coming out of a key divisional loss to the Buffalo Bills last week. They have been playing some pretty good football, even during that loss to the Bills last week, where they went down narrowly 35-31. Prior to that, they had a 8 or 9 game win streak, and were playing against some of the I guess tougher scoring opponents that they had to overcome in the league. I won't say better teams, but tougher scoring opponents. And one of those was the Bills earlier on in the season as well. The Patriots here against the Ravens, I think this is going to be a key matchup for the Ravens for me specifically. And just in their race for the AFC in general and being able to stay within a wildcard spot, or even get to a wildcard spot. I said a couple of weeks ago I thought that the 1 through 7 in the AFC was already set, as in they are the 7 teams who would be in it, and currently the Ravens are sitting at number 9. They do still have an outside chance to make the wildcard games, or the wildcard weekend, especially with the Indianapolis Colts now down their starting quarterback and reverting to Grandpa. But they do also need the Houston Texans to actually falter at some point, which is very, very hard. So the Ravens need to win this. They need to play Ravens football. They need to try and dominate New England Patriots. But I don't know whether they're going to be able to overcome Mike Vrabel's brain, a guy who I think has some ego like Sean Payton, but I seem to like a lot more.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit more of the lunch pail style. I think he's a little bit more kind of the Dan Campbell.
How similar are they, Brad?
Yeah. Very, very much so. That they're leader of men. Whereas Sean Payton, I kind of feel like he's that snotty kid who's sits at the back of the class, who's really smart, but just kind of puts everybody else down. Yeah. Anyway, to me, this game it's going to come down to Derrick Henry. Can Derrick Henry get going? Because the Pats defense is banged up. So I don't know what they're going to become game time, but I know they've had a lot of guys miss practice this week. And the one stat when I was looking at this game that really surprised me, because I've been kind of down on Derrick Henry, but the Ravens are actually leading the league in rushing yards per carry. So they're getting 5.2 yards per carry. So they're leading the league in that, which it really surprised me. But if you're forcing these kind of banged up Patriots to try and tackle Derrick Henry in space, that's a tall order. So that's a matchup that I would really look at, is the Henry versus the New England front and what they can do. Now, Vrabel's a defensive whiz, and he'll get something going. But that's going to be a key matchup. And I think the one thing we know about Henry is he's a baller. And this is playoff football right now, even though we're only week 16. This is what it's coming down to. And because they know if they win this, then basically it could conceivably come down to that week 18 matchup against Pittsburgh for winner take all. How good would that be? We got to get there, first of all. But I think the Ravens are going to pull out all the stops, and I actually see them winning this game. I think this is also just another iteration. The Patriots kind of, I don't want to say they padded their stats on this easy schedule, but, now they're coming into some more playoff caliber teams, and I think you're going to see them regress a little bit. This is why we play football, man.
All right. We've been having a few connection issues. Brad has been sort of, absconded to the wilderness. Someone's come in, just taken over.
Gremlins.
Yeah, his wife's put him on a schedule for Christmas, and she's decided to pull the plug on the internet. All right, Nick, your thoughts on the Pats-Ravens game? We were sort of midway through when everything went tits up just then, as Brad puts it.
Yes, one of the things I did agree with is that there is a sort of clear one side where the Ravens have actually gotten a lot better in their rush game, and the Patriots earlier in the year, their rush defense was actually really good. Like through the first 9 weeks, they were the best in the NFL. They were only conceding about 75 yards a game. Since week 10, so the last sort of 5, 6 weeks, it's gone up to 130 a game. Now, a lot of that is contributed to last week giving up 168 to the Bills, but it's still a massive increase. So it's definitely something where they're going to need to hone in a bit on that a bit more. I know Milton Williams is eligible to come back from IR. Obviously, he can help in that regard. Whether he is going to play or not is one thing, but it's obviously not just him. It's obviously, the whole front seven that they've got there for the Patriots. So the biggest thing that you sort of take out of this game, not so much more so the Ravens side focusing on, but more the Patriots side is how do they respond with being knocked back? They've had a run where they've been able to just go win a bunch of games. They've played some really bad teams. They've just come off a game where they played very well that first half and then completely got annihilated that second half. They gave up a big lead, and Buffalo ran over the top of them in New England. So now it's going to be like, this is sort of an indicator. So they're coming up against a team, the Ravens haven't been what they have the previous few years, but they're a desperate team. And their avenue into the playoffs is going to be winning that division. They won't get in as a wild card. It's not going to happen. They have to get in through winning the division. So they have to keep pace with the Steelers because obviously that's going to come down to that last sort of matchup in week 18. So they're going to be a desperate team. And regardless of, Lamar and his injuries and, they've had some issues defensively. Defensively last week, they shut out the Bengals. And I know the Bengals are sort of mentally checked out, but, it's still an achievement considering the guys that they've got on that side of the ball. So wondering if, the Patriots are going to be able to go through and just hold their nerve and be able to get through this game because it is a big game. They've got Buffalo breathing down their neck now. They're only one game behind. For the Ravens, they just need to find a way to just keep winning. And as long as they can just put themselves, it's been a bit up and down, they can put themselves in that position where they've got that home playoff game, they've got that 4 seed. The Chiefs aren't in it, the Bengals aren't in it. Who knows? You just play it as it lies and just go from there.
All right, let's go some betting for this game. I looked at you similar on your running and your rushing attack points there, Nick. One of the big things I looked at was, of course, Travion Henderson coming out of last week, who is just like a lightning bolt to the league in terms of running backs. I love that this year we found some amazing rookie running backs. And, of course, Cam Scatterbo was massively talked about before his injury, still is talked about. Travion Henderson, Amari and Hampton. Like, I love that these guys that we talked about in the draft shows about going high, that they have just performed better than expectations. It's been awesome. It's awesome to watch. But, of course, he's just like a lightning bolt for this team, taken over basically as RB1. The Ravens, however, though, David Montgomery is the only one who's actually achieved against the Ravens defense rushing. He had a 151-yard game many, many weeks ago when they played the Lions. But I think Travion Henderson is probably a massive chance to have another sensational game here. I'm not going to go the 100-yard plus realm, but I think him at 50 yards plus is a great bet at about $1.60, and as an anytime touchdown scorer, he is sensational in the red zone, and I think we're going to see that from him. Just over $2, $2.15 for an anytime touchdown from Travion Henderson. Brad, have you got anybody out there in the desert?
No, I found this one really hard to pick personally. So the only thing I would, no, sorry.
No, that's okay. Ravens are at 2.5 as favourites against the Patriots at home. So 2.5 in Baltimore.
I would probably, just to interject. If I had to do one, I would probably do Drake May on his under for passing yards, because I think Baltimore is going to grind this out, and I don't think he'll have the opportunities to connect deep.
237.5 is Drake May's line.
Okay,
That's pretty high, actually.
Yeah, I would take the under on that.
Total under over is 47.5. Nick, anything that jumped out to you on this game?
Yeah, that under, actually, I was just about to say that total under. I don't mind at all. It's going to be a game where I think both rushing attacks are probably going to be more so the dominant part of this game. So it's probably going to be a lot of chewing the clock on both sides. You know, a lot of longer drives. Both rush defenses probably need to be are as good. So that's where I think this is where the game is probably going to be. It's going to be a low scoring sort of game, and that's why I think, you know, as I said earlier, coming towards the end, other pages, you know, mentally tough enough to be able to go and do it again. Because I think with Mike Vrabel, with how poorly they've been with their rush defense recently, he's got to be able to fix that up, and I think he could be doing that this week. So he's going to need to.
All right, so that's the Sunday games we want to watch. Four sensational games that we think you should watch as well. Let's jump now to Monday Night Football for a quick preview. It is the San Francisco 49ers at the Indianapolis Colts. Mr. Irrelevant versus Old Man Rivers. Old Man Rivers. There we go. Thanks, boys. Of course, the big story is obviously Philip Rivers. That's the massive story of the last 2 weeks. Is 44-year-old Philip Rivers unretiring and coming back and playing for the Indianapolis Colts and throwing a touchdown last week with his little noodle arm. And I think he tried to go deep as well, and it was 25 yards. So that was hilarious. That's the big story. But the big story of this game is actually the other side, and it is San Francisco 49ers, who, by the time this game has been played, will know who has won or lost between the Rams and the Seahawks on Thursday night, and will then know whether or not they will be able to overtake somebody in and gain second place in the NFC West, because they are still fighting for a division over there with the Rams and the Seahawks. Three teams that are hotly contesting that that particular division. All three are currently on winning streaks. So, Nick, let's move through it quickly, because we have been here for a long time with everything that's gone on with our previous previews. But the 49ers, this is a very big matchup for them.
Absolutely. And I'll just go one further than what you said before. So if in the event, and now I have to preface this with, by the time this comes out, yes, by this time I have had to support the Seahawks because we actually need them to win. It's not ideal. I hate myself for it. But if they are to win and this game on Monday night ends up in a victory for us, and it can actually be in the number one seed in the entire NFC, which is very strange considering how everything has gone this year for us. One of these, this game has sort of been sort of back and forth. Like, it's one of those games where it's just sort of looked, you know, you look at games that are sort of later in the season and you go, this is probably a game where at the start of the season I was like, okay, we're probably going to be pretty safe here. Then there's a season where I was like, oh, I actually think we're in a lot of trouble with this game. And then the Philip Rivers comes in, and then it's like, maybe we might be all right. So it's been sort of a roller coaster, and I think I'm not sort of fooled by, you know, what happened last week. I think Seattle was very much in a look-ahead game. They were purely focused on, all right, we've got to get to Thursday night. We've got the Rams. We need to win. If we don't, we can't win the division. So that's probably what their thinking was. So I'm not sort of fooled by that. The avenue that the Colts have that sort of worries me is that our rush defense hasn't been that good this year. And if Jonathan Taylor can get going, they've got a really good offensive line. And I get that sort of, you know, the Colts can, you know, last week were able to dink and dunk sort of underneath, but I think more so the run game is going to be their avenue if they're going to try and win this. Offensively, I'm not sort of concerned, as the Colts sort of defensively haven't been that good. So it's just going to be more so, can we stop the run? If we're able to stop the run, then obviously I'm quite confident in what we can do and try and win this game. But if Jonathan Taylor gets up and going, then we could be in a little bit of trouble. But the stuff I actually like, or sorry, the betting line I actually like in this game is Brock Purdy for 250 plus passing yards. I do think it is pretty much achievable because I mean Sam Donald, even he didn't do much last week. He still got the 270, and they didn't really do much offensively anyway. So yeah, that's as brief as I could put it. Really, pretty much offensively we're healthy as can be now, so we're pretty much pretty good with that. Just defensively, that's what I'm worrying about for the rest of the year. How much can we hold up? How long can we hold up? How do you guys view it?
I I talked about this earlier in the year. I think we just briefly mentioned it, and I don't want to throw you under the bus, Nick, but I thought you said that you didn't think the 49ers were going to be able to make the playoffs this season. I think they're looking good for the playoffs.
For the season or during the season?
During the season,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
I was going to say before the season, I had us winning the division, which is still in play, mind you.
no, this was. I think this was like about week 5 or 6, something like that. So, but which is understandable considering all the injuries that they had. And again, which goes back. I mean, let me ask you this: Has Shanahan risen in your eyes in terms of the quality of the coach? Because I know you had a little bit of doubts about him. Has he cured all those, or are you still a little bit of a doubter?
Honestly, it's probably going to sound a bit like how you guys are with Sean Payton, but honestly, I look more so to if you go through and look at the guys that we have on defense, like look at names, there are not a lot of notable names. I'm more so pointing this to how we've been able to get through a lot of this to Robert Saleh.
Yeah.
As you know,
Okay.
earlier in the year, like we were able to hold that Seattle offense to 13 points. Then we were able to keep the Rams at bay earlier in the year, in that sort of overtime game. So we've had some games where we've been able to keep some teams at bay with pretty much no one defensively. So I think it's just been more so that Salah's just improved his coaching ability. Like he has had a good year, Shane. I'm not going to say he's not, because obviously he's had Mac Jones come in there and he's been able to win some games. But yeah, like he's been able to coach well. But my thing has always been in the playoffs, regardless.
Righto. Well, we lost Brad again. Great point, Nick. I like it, and I do love that analysis too. Brad really is having some struggles with the internet there in Brisbane today. So we will just power on with the end of this. Nick, you mentioned your betting line there, so you're looking at Brock Purdy's passing yards 250 plus. That's pretty good. I would suggest some other stuff if you want some short price stuff for anybody out there. Christian McCaffrey, God, that dude is a lock for everything, especially touchdowns at the moment. I was having a quick look to see Philip Rivers over for touchdown passes this week again, because last week it was hilarious. Passing TDs, it is set at 0.5 again. You know what? We go on the over. Come on, let's bring it home. Come on, Phil, let's throw another touchdown. I can't
They're
resist.
just better every week until the end of the year.
It'd be just like the Colts and just their season and just the Ursay of it all to bring in Philip Rivers off the couch, 44 years old, going on 45, and they end up winning a couple of games. So winning against who have they got? It'd be, because of course they've got 49ers here. So let's say if they beat the 49ers, then they've got the Jags and the Texans. Winning one of those two and probably sneaking themselves into the playoffs. It'd be the absolute Ursay of it all. I am still very down about how this season's ended up without Daniel Jones, and then just the way that the offense ended up for them, where Jonathan Taylor sort of hasn't really fired in the second half of the season like he did early on. I don't know whether teams maybe just sort of figured out the blueprint on how to beat them. And that went down because they were looking the goods early in the season, and after Jim's death, you sort of thought this could be their season, and to pay tribute to the big man, and it was the season for them to achieve something, and now it all fell away so quickly, so quickly, and it shows you just how easy that in the NFL a season can just outrun you when you don't want it to. Because they were looking like a lock for this division for sure.
Yeah.
Right, so that would be the extra bits and pieces I would say to people just to have a look out on in terms of just simple lines. I know Philip Rivers passing TDs is just a laugh, but yeah, look at Christian McCaffrey. He's going to make you some money for sure. Look at Brock Purdy's passing yards. Probably even look at Brock Purdy's rushing yards a little. I know his rushing yards sometimes, they're not huge, but he usually achieves his under-over total. So have a quick look at that. You might be able to chuck that into a multi somewhere there as well. Tyler Warren passing yards, receptions rather, is probably up there as well. So just a few bits and pieces. All right, that is Monday Night Football. 49ers Colts. Very important game for the 49ers, as we said. Very, very important for the health of their season. I have one more bet for you. Something big to put on, something fun. An 8-leg multi for this week. Very hard to pick from. I tried to restrict it to just those Sunday and Monday games. Of course, we've already previewed, and you would have seen by this point, Thursday Night Football. We previewed the Sunday Australia games, the Saturday US, which you'll see tomorrow. So I tried to stick away from those. Just have this purely as the games, the game day we usually look at, which is Monday Australia, plus the Tuesday game, so Monday Night Football. 8 legs. I pulled the 8 legs out.
Sarah.
Los Angeles Chargers over the Dallas Cowboys. They're not favourites, weirdly. So I like that.
Let us know.
The Minnesota Vikings over the New York Giants. The Vikings are on a 2-game win streak now. The Giants are on an 8-game losing streak. They are the number 1 overall pick. I don't think they're going to want to win. I think they'll want to compete, but I don't think they're going to want to win. The New Orleans Saints over the New York Jets. Give me the Shuckinator to win that game. I actually took them on the handicap at -4.5.
Wow.
I think they'll beat the Jets by a score. Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Panthers. I took the Tennessee Titans over the Kansas City Chiefs. We mentioned it much earlier on top of the show. I took the Falcons over the Cardinals. I think the Falcons have finally figured out that they can win some games to not give the Rams as good a draft pick.
Well, they're taking for a second round pick.
Yeah.
Early 30s.
The New England Patriots over the Baltimore Ravens, who are not favourites, so that's quite a long shot, that one. And then I took the 49ers at -6.5 over the Colts. So I went on the 49ers handicap. And we ended up with $183.38 for an 8-leg multi.
It's a winner.
What a winner. I love it. I love all of it. All of it. Let's go. You could get even more with a power play from Sportsbet as well. Sportsbet still don't sponsor us. Sportsbet, reach out. We've been supporting you. We're definitely better than the guys that you have on your own podcast. I'll guarantee
Free
that.
plugs every week.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Thank you very much for joining us. It has been a weird podcast for us with all of the ins and outs and the drops and stuff and everything at the top. And
from Queensland.
Yeah, and the fact that Isaac decided he wanted to choose the weirdest game possible. So thank you very much for joining us. You can find everything about the Gday Gridiron podcast at Gday Gridiron on all the socials. You'll find us on YouTube if you search for Gday Gridiron, or go to linktree/Aussie Gridiron Network for all of the links to everybody's shows. It is coming down to the very, very skinny end of the season. Of course, Christmas is next week, so we will be back for a reaction show, which you will sort of see Tuesday evening, Wednesday morning, and possibly a preview show at that point. We haven't decided on which games we're going to do yet, if it's the Christmas games or if it's something else from later in the week, but we will definitely bring you those next week, even despite the fact that it is Christmas, because we are grinding and we love to just talk football. So thank you very much. see you later. And go Hogs, Nick. Go Hogs.
Yes, hopefully back with another one.